guys, and welcome back to the Tim Sports Talk. And today we are going to be previewing some Jags Commanders. And we got special guest here, Jason from Jaguars United. His link is in the description if you want to go hit him up. But how you doing today, Jason?
Bro, I'm doing good, man. I'm so happy that there's some friendly fire fans around here. So I'm pumped. Week 1, finally. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yes, yes. Finally, real football, not preseason.
Yep.
And yes, this segment is talking with the enemy, but we're not really enemies. It's all in fun on there. But this weekend we will be. We want the Jags to go 0-1 at this show, including him. No, I'm just kidding. But that's fun. Awesome. Well, we got some stuff to talk about, obviously. We'll learn some about the Jaguars. But first, let's learn about Jason here, our guest.
Okay.
How'd you become a Jags fan?
All right, so I'm actually, it's pretty rare, right? So we're one of the few teams that actually doesn't have a long lineage and generation of Jags fans, right? We started the team in like 1985. So literally like you have to be like, 28, 29 when the team was started. So we don't have like where most of our parents were like Cowboys fans or Patriots fans, right? And so Steelers fans. So we're really like first generation fans, people my age. So I was pretty young when the team came in, and I fell in love with the team. I fell in love with like everything it represented, and I have just been a hardcore Jags fan my entire life. And I love like just consuming all sports talk, whether it's like local radio, YouTube, podcast, whatever it is. And I noticed there was a huge void in like Jaguar fans actually having a voice. So I looked around and I was like, hey, let's start a YouTube channel, and here we are. So we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, you just took my next one. Yeah, I was curious on how it became a Jags YouTuber. So there you go. So wanted to be a voice of the fans. You got to love that. My story was more of I saw a lot of other people with takes I didn't like. So I wanted to put my take out there.
But okay, listen, that was me too. But dude, honestly, this is my biggest thing. And again, it's a little side tangent. I won't go off too far.
Fine.
But the local radio would literally play 3 minutes of content and 15 minutes of commercials and just loop that. And I was like, there's got to be something better out there. I looked out for stuff and there wasn't much. So here I am. And so I feel like you were on the same path. We're both fans. So just glad to be here with you.
Yeah, that is interesting because you said, like, as you said, there's not a lot of, or there's no long-term Jags fans unless you consider 95 long-term, I guess. But
right.
Yeah, so you're one of the first generation. So there shouldn't be, I guess, that many or actually there might be even more YouTubers of yours because all of like the old fans are in their like mid to late 20s, I guess. I don't know. Did you find that there was a ton of Jaguars YouTubers out there, or you're saying that there wasn't much and that's why you became here?
So better than anybody, like to be a YouTuber or a podcaster, it's like actually a lot of work. It's not something that you just kind of do like as like a hobby even. Like you kind of have to like grind. You have to be consistent with your shows. You have to really know what you're talking about because fans of like content can sniff out fakes and phonies like a mile away. So like you literally have to be like on your grind. And I got into it for fun and then with like a podcast with some buddies. And then I realized I was like, dang, if I like actually want to do this for like a hobby, I have to actually like try, which is something that I did not expect when I first got into this. So that's what, I'm one of the few that I guess stuck with it and, stuck to a consistent schedule, stuck to committing to doing shows all the time, to doing the research and trying to sound educated rather than emotional. And so, you know how I know, you know how it is. Like it's a lot more work than people think because you see people's channels pop up all the time wanting to start a channel, and I always encourage people to do it if they want to do it. But in reality, it's a lot more work than people think.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's like a part-time job. It really is. Like it definitely takes a lot, but it is a lot of fun though at the same time.
And that's not even counting the editing. Like when it comes to editing, like that's a whole nother ball game. And that's just like I had to learn how to edit. Yeah. I'm on YouTube. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yep. All the softwares everywhere. It's horrible. But all right, before we get into some more of the off-season things, I just had a question because Washington fans want this guy's head on a stick.
Sure.
But he was your head coach for a bit. Yeah. And you guys had some interest. I think you went 13-3 with him one year with Garrard.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this.
How did you guys like Jack Del Rio when he was in Jacksonville?
Okay, so I got to preface it with this. All right. People that watch my channel know that I am like I'm a former football coach. I'm the last one to jump on coaches. I'm the last one. Like I was the last one to get off the Urban Meyer train, and I know Urban Meyer was a disaster. But I was the last one. I was like, okay, well, I was the last one. Jack Del Rio, I never jumped off that train. I loved Jack Del Rio when he was here. Now, don't get me wrong. I was in the minority, right? I was in the minority. Okay. But at the same time, I was the last one. I'm a defensive guy. I liked Del Rio. I don't know if you ever saw him wearing like they used to be able to wear the suits on the sideline for like one game a year. He wore like a legit suit, like a business suit for the Jags game. And it was like, I loved him. I thought he was hard-nosed, defensive-minded. When he went to Vegas as a defense coordinator, I rooted for him. And, I like the coaching staff in Washington. I really, really do. I like Ron Rivera. I love Jack Del Rio. And you could convince me on Scott Turner. Like, I don't know much about him, but I liked Norv Turner, right? Mm-hmm. So, but Jack Del Rio is a guy I was always a fan of. I was in the minority. I was kind of disappointed when we fired him. We actually went on a long lineage of coaches that were terrible. Let me just list some off for you, just for remembrance, if you don't mind. We had Mike Mularkey, Doug Marrone, Gus Bradley. I mean, these names are pathetic, and we let these guys stick around for a long time. And we really just we had Tom Coughlin was a GM, and he didn't really So I mean, it was just like Jack Del Rio was one of the better coaches that we've had in the last 20 years, to put it frankly for you.
Yeah, we unfortunately ran away our one really good coach with Mike Shanahan.
Yeah,
we decided to pick the quarterback over him. But we've definitely had some doozies of Jim Zorn is arguably the worst ever.
Urban Meyer's hard to beat. Urban Meyer he didn't even last a full season.
He didn't last a full season. Yeah, because off the field stuff too. But honestly, Jim Zorn shouldn't have lasted a full season at that point. It was like apparently Chris Cooley talked about it afterwards. Our tight, I'm sure you remember him, I guess, or maybe
of course, absolutely, yeah. Chris Cooley, yeah.
He talked about he was on the radio, local radio for a while, and he talked about like how all the players were like, "Why is this guy our head coach? Like he has no business being a head coach of an NFL football team. Like it was ridiculous." So. That's how bad we had it, but I understand. So cool. But you mentioned that you were a coach. I actually forgot to ask. So, like, I know you do film breakdowns and stuff. Yeah. So you do have a background in football?
Yeah, I played football. I coached football. I actually work now in athletic administration because I realized that athletic administration is how you can work in sports, but not have to log 17 hours a day. So it's actually a good little happy medium. Yeah, I mean, I love the sport of football. I'm a nerd for the X's and O's and film breakdowns. And that's probably how my channel got a little bit of traction, was because people like that stuff. Yeah. And so, I just like to break it down. And I mean, that's why I'm always the last one to get on coaches, though. And I mean, I know Washington fans are quick to jump off of Jack Del Rio. Well,
there's a couple things of Jack Del Rio that's really ticking us off. And the number one thing is he's decided that he's going to play his corners 7, 8, 9 yards off the ball on 3rd and 2.
Okay.
And then their first step is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an easy pitch and catch. It's the easiest thing to play. And we have no ability to play zone. And I don't know if that's exactly because of personnel, or it seems like no matter who we put out there, they play it the same way. So I'm assuming it's coached where they just decide to guard a spot on the football field instead of the entire zone. Like if a player comes into your zone, you have to go actually move towards him, not just sit in a single spot. But anyway, I could go on and on.
Well, I mean, I know you guys have Willie Jackson and Kendall Fuller now, but have you? Yeah. I mean, have they always been there? Like, have you?
Well, we had him last year. William Jackson was signed last offseason, and then Kendall Fuller came the year before. Well, we actually drafted him. Then he went. We traded him away for Alex Smith, and he was on the Chiefs. And then we brought him back, I think, in 2020. So
it's not a lack of talent.
Yeah, like it's frustrating. So there's just some things that we see that it's a struggle. And then of course, I don't know if you could blame him or blame the coaching staff. We just decided to not pick up linebackers, but we have a linebacker head coach and a linebacker defensive coordinator. Apparently, we don't need talent at the linebacker spot. But anyway, all right. enough about Jack Del Rio. I'm sure we'll get back on Jack Del Rio.
I got thoughts for days on Jack Del Rio and y'all's defense. I like y'all's defense. I like where y'all are going with it. I really do. Right. I mean, y'all have been injured though. I mean, I don't. Yeah. That's kind of where I was going with it. I don't know if it's necessarily fair because you look at a team that's been injured the way that y'all have been. I mean, they went into the season with a plan. It just injuries didn't work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely several injuries over the last few years. It's been crazy for sure.
Like just Chase Young not playing. Like I know that sucks for y'all.
Yeah.
For us, I mean, literally everyone here was like, "Oh man, I hope it's not serious," but glad he's missing game 1.
Yeah. Come back week 2. You're fine. Yeah. Well, now he won't come back until week 5. But yes, yeah, I understand that for sure. All right. Well, let's hop into some Jaguars offseason. So you hired Doug Pederson. Okay. Of course, we already mentioned that you're embarrassed by Urban Meyer, understandably.
Right.
But do you like the Doug Pederson hire? Spoiler, I do. But how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, like again, I mentioned the lineage of coaches that we've had in the past. We haven't had a good coach really since Del Rio. And you look at a guy like Doug Marrone, who kind of backdoored his way into one of the greatest defenses, like statistically in NFL history, to making the 2017 run. But besides that, we haven't had a legit coach, and I think that's more of the players that have been brought in. I'd blame the GMs more than the coaches, if I'm being honest with you guys. But it's now you have a guy like Doug Pederson who has a proven track record. Looking back in our past, we haven't had a single coach with a proven track record. I mean, you look back at a guy like Mike Mularkey was the most, the guy with the most track record, and he got fired after one season when Shad Khan took over as the owner of the team. Yeah. And so we've been hiring these young guys and these guys that were like, well known, but finally we have a guy that's won a Super Bowl. We have a guy who's proven that he can call his own offense, doesn't need an offensive coordinator to call his offense, and just has a track record of really just knowing what he needs to win. We were looking at the players that he's kept on his 53-man rosters over his 4 or 5 years at Philadelphia, and they were all wildly different. For 1 year, 7 wide receivers. 1 year, 4 tight ends, 1 year, 7 safeties. So it's just like he goes to what he has, and that's just refreshing because he knows how to adapt his coaching style to the players that he has. And on top of that, he's brought in a great staff. I mean, a lot of things that have flown under the radar is the guys that he's brought in on this offensive coaching staff. Mike McCoy, former Chargers coach, Jim Bob Cooter, former head coach, Press Taylor, brother of Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. Okay. So, I mean, like the guys that he has on his offensive coaching staff are pretty good. And I think you combine all of that with a team who's really young and kind of emerging. I think that he was the perfect hire.
Awesome. Were you let's go back to the draft for just a short time. Were you surprised that Trayvon Walker was the pick at number 1? Is
Absolutely.
that who you wanted?
Not who I wanted. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Who did you want? And
so
going with the
yeah, no. So I thought that Aiden Hutchinson was the home run pick there. But as we watched Trayvon Walker in the preseason, I can kind of see where they're going. Now, I'm not going to get too nerdy on you, but Trayvon Walker played basically exclusively hand in the dirt, kind of inside big D tackle at Georgia. And then he came to Jacksonville, and they said, we're going to play him at just edge 9 technique outside rusher, which is weird because it's like, okay, this guy never did that before, but I get it. You want to see like how he can translate. So he's done really well there. So that's been good. I mean, after seeing what he has done in the preseason, I'm very happy with the pick. And I think now actually that was the right pick. And I think they got it right. But who I wanted and what I want to hear your opinion on was I convinced a large portion of the Jaguars fan base to draft Jameson Williams number 1. Okay.
Williams number 1.
And here's why I want to add. Okay. And I'll tell you why I wanted him. Because I'm team Trevor. This team's going as Trevor Lawrence goes. Okay. I thought, I want to take the first pick with Trevor, the second round pick for Trevor, just help Trevor out because he's the franchise. He's the guy. I mean, he's a generational talent in my opinion. So don't take an edge rusher and, take a receiver who I think James Williams is the best receiver coming out of this year's draft. Obviously the injury helped make him fall in the draft boards, but you guys traded out of your pick. You traded down from the first round pick, and some guys that you could have had were, I mean, you ended up getting Jahan Dotson, but you passed on Chris Olave. You passed on Jameson Williams, a D tackle like Jordan Davis, a safety like Kyle Hamilton. So does Washington have any kind of scratching their head regrets on the Jahan Dotson pick over some of those guys that I'd named?
So my take on that whole situation is I loved the trade back.
Okay.
Hated the Jahan Okay. So I wanted to move back. I was fine with moving back. But I also have I'm very anti wide receiver in the first round.
Okay, it's fair.
I completely lean against wide receiver unless you're getting the Calvin Johnson, the 6'4" plus 4'4" guy, jumps out of the gym, tremendous hit. If you're getting the Julio Jones, okay, fine, you're getting the full package here. But a 5'10" and a half, 180-pound wide receiver at pick 16 made me want to pull my hair out. I was so mad. And so you wanted to get Jameson Williams number 1. See, to me, that's like sacrilege. Absolutely. Now, what Jameson Williams does have is elite speed. Like, he is a Tyreek Hill crazy speed. So it obviously would help your offense tremendously to have a guy like that. But I would personally, way more, I would want Trayvon Walker or Aiden Hutchinson or Thibodeau, one of these DNs over, because you didn't need tackles, right? You have Robinson in the...
Well, I mean, we need a right tackle, but no one takes a right tackle anymore. I mean, Cam Robinson was signed, but I mean, the reason why I like Jameson Williams is because I think we'll retroactively look back at this draft and he'll end up being in 2 or 3 years. We'll say 3 or 4 that he was the best player in this draft. I mean, watching him at Alabama, not only does he have the speed, I think he's a great route runner. He's got elite hands, elite body control. I mean, he does it all. I mean, he's going to be the best receiver in this draft, and I think that I was willing to wait.
I have a
who do you think? Who do you think is the best receiver in the draft?
He didn't even go in the first round.
That's fair. That's fine. Most receivers don't.
George Pickens.
Okay, George Pickens is good. A lot of Jags fans wanted George Pickens in this top of the second round. I mean, that was like a guy that was talked about a lot here.
Yeah, I wanted him so bad. To me, he's the guy that I think could be the number 1 receiver. He's 6'3", 4.4 speed, toughness, can get in there and block as well. He had the lowest drop rate according to the advanced statistics. Like, he had tremendous hands at the college level. Also a great route runner. You can watch the highlights of just double move, triple moves, all that good stuff. To me, that's my guy. But I understand the Jameson Williams. You can't teach speed, and he does. And he didn't run a 40, so we don't know exactly how. But you watch him at Alabama against these SEC DBs, and he is just dusting them. So if Jameson Williams ends up being the number 1 receiver in this draft, I wouldn't be 12 eyes kind of thing. But I'm a huge George Pickens guy, and that's why I wanted so bad. And we could have had him in the second, and he went to the Steelers.
I know,
who don't miss on receivers. So it's like before you even see a game, you just know you were right. On the pick, right? And so I have that in the back of my mind, and I have all the Redskins fans, of course, Commanders fans, saying, don't give him a chance, do this, do that. Of course we're going to, but I'm still going to give my opinion, and I didn't like the pick, so it is what it is.
All right, this leads me to my next question for you, and this actually is the number 1 question I wanted to ask you. Okay. Are you ready? So I just heard it here now. How often do you accidentally say Redskins rather than Commanders?
In my real life, I call them Skins. I don't call them Commanders.
Because every time I call them the Commanders, I have to mentally oh, whoa, not Redskins, not Redskins, Commanders. So if
it's not a curse word on this, it's not a slur on this show at all.
I just wonder how often does it happen, inadvertently?
Oh all the time. Especially, I mean, on the show, I'm usually pretty decent about it, but we also just did talk about it on Skins in the Game, the show I do with my dad, we started calling them Skins and stuff, and again, but because a lot of fans or I just heard on the radio of a local guy say basically this feels like a expansion team with the command. To me, this doesn't feel any different than because I still call them the Skins, but uniforms have changed in the past, so a uniform change doesn't bother me. We're still burgundy and gold. We still have FedEx Field, which is a crap hole, but it's still the same stadium that we've had. So I don't feel much differently about it. But yeah, I obviously didn't want the name changed. Still don't want the name changed. And I wanted Red Wolves instead of Commanders. I would have been much more interested in being a Red Wolf instead of a Commander. But I'm also I'm a battered woman. I can't leave. They can do whatever, and it's probably bad for me to stay. But as far as my health is concerned, but they make me want to pull my hair out sometimes. But
I mean,
that's the fun of it.
I mean, I was looking at you guys' schedule before the show. Doing a little recon. I mean, you guys listen. I'm a Taylor Heineke fan, and I don't know how y'all feel about him. every time I watched him, I was like, this guy's a playmaker. And I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
he, and you guys were so streaky last year. I mean, 4 losses, 4 wins, and it's just like you guys were a streaky team, and that kind of leads me to believe that you weren't far away
Mm-hmm.
last year from so.
The problem with Heineke, and he is a playmaker. He can do things with his legs. He in a Tampa game, he was doing everything he could to complete every third down. At times, he can be really an accurate quarterback. He doesn't have a strong arm whatsoever, but he can put it where it needs to be as far as accuracy is concerned. And then other games, you're like, where are you throwing? And that's the problem. And he also doesn't have the size that you would want to see,
Right.
where there was times where he got lost to the pocket. He couldn't see the receivers, and then he tried to chuck something up and ended up being a pick. Right? He had 15 interceptions. So while Heineke, I think he's a top tier backup right now.
I agree.
I think he's a top tier backup, but he just does not have that arm strength and consistency to be an actual NFL quarterback. And I'm glad we made the move for Carson Wentz for sure. But,
so what do you? I mean, what do you expect out of Carson Wentz? I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this on your channel, and I don't want to overstep because I know you've probably talked about it a lot on your channel. But I'm just wondering, because we've seen Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. We personally, the Jags, we played Carson Wentz, twice last year in Indy. So what are you guys expecting out of Carson Wentz? What are you looking to see out of him?
So yeah, definitely a mixed bag amongst the fan base. It's either we're getting MVP Carson Wentz or we're getting a trash can, and we made a horrible mistake and we need to fire everybody in the building. But to me, I loved the move. And I said it 2 weeks before even the trade was a possibility. I had nobody knew, and somebody asked, "What do you think about trading for Carson Wentz?" And I'm like, that might be the best case scenario. Why? Because you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get him like Russell Wilson. You're not sending
Baker,
3 first round.
Right.
Well, I'm not a Baker fan anymore.
Okay.
Because he had all the talent in the world around him, and he still was a 500 quarterback last year. I know he had some injuries later, but the whole way he was 1-1, 2-2, 3-3,
Right.
4-4. That Cleveland team did not lack talent.
Right.
And I liked Baker coming out at Oklahoma, but super strong arm, gamer he looked like. But I'm off the Baker train. So I didn't want Baker. To me, I feel like Carson Wentz, he's obviously a gunslinger, so he's going to put it in harm's way in dangerous situations. Even though he only had 7 picks, I know there's other games he could have had more, whatever. But I look at his receiving cores throughout the year, and even last year, and how bad the offensive line was for him as far as pass blocking. Obviously, they blocked their tails off for Jonathan Taylor, but pass blocking, I think they were ranked 30th according to PFF. And Michael Pittman, to me, is not a number 1 receiver. Fine number 2, but he's not
I agree.
a true number 1.
Yeah.
Now he has Terry McLaurin, who I love. He's got a first-round pick in Jahan. He's got Curtis Samuel with 4.3 speed. He's got weapons here. Logan Thomas, Cole Turner at tight end with John Bates as well. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick out of the backfield as far as the pass game. To me, I think we can get the 2017 Carson Wentz again. Am I predicting that? No. But I think we can.
So I agree with everything you just said.
Uh-huh.
Looking at your roster, I love everything you said. Do you have any reservations? And maybe this is a good time to talk about the Brandon Sheriff, Andrew Norwell swap. But do you have any reservations about the offensive line? Because I look at your offensive line and, PFF grades Leno Jr. was decent. I don't know how to pronounce it. Was it Rollier? I don't know how to, the center.
Chase Roulier.
Yeah, Roulier. Okay. Decent player.
Mm-hmm.
Cosme had a good preseason 1 game, but good in pass block, not necessarily great in run blocking. Are you concerned about the offensive line?
Not at all. And here's why. Not because I think we have the most talented offensive line, but we have the best offensive line coach in the league in John Matsko. We put so many, the last 2 years, we've put so many different combinations of offensive line, and they still find a way to be competent in the offensive line. And Heineke had protection a lot of times, right? It's not like he was just getting run roughshod over. And yeah, are we the most talented? Absolutely not. Brandon Sheriff is a stud.
Yeah.
Right? I just don't want to pay $17 million or whatever you guys paid him for.
You got to pay to play, baby. You got to pay to play.
I'm not paying a guard that much money, right? So Leno is okay. He had the play of the year last year when he missed the block and had Ryan Fitzpatrick hurt. But outside of that, we're going to be an okay offensive line, I think. Not top tier, but I think we were actually last year ranked like number 6. Without like elite, well, I guess Brandon Sheriff is elite talent,
right?
So
yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, we had one guard that's elite. The rest of them are not elite, and we had tons of guys in and out. Sam Cosmi was hurt. I don't think Leno ever missed time, but the Wes Schweitzer had to come in and play. Chase Roullier got hurt most of the season. We had Keith Ishmael in the game. He was awful, but I think our offensive line is actually going to be okay. I think we're going to be better than what the Colts did last year as far as pass blocking is concerned.
So that's where I think the game's going to come down to for us week 1, because our D line has been insane during the preseason. And obviously I'm not, naive. I know preseason's preseason, but I mean, they were beyond insane. I mean, they were like, anytime the first team D-line was out there, they were consistently collapsing the pocket on every team we played. And, with Josh Allen, we had guys, we had some pretty good depth last year, but we lacked so much talent in so many different areas and poor coaching that really it all became watered down, and all of our like end of the year stats and power rankings and league rankings end of the year with as far as like points allowed and yards allowed, things like that. So it kind of got watered down, but we have a lot of talent on the defensive line, and we bolstered the linebacking core to where now our front 7 is, and I know every fan base is going to claim this, but I think our front 7, you're going to see a massive jump in production. And so looking at where Washington, to me, I think that's Washington's weakest point, because like you said, I like their skill positions. I like their defensive line. Your linebacker, you mentioned you didn't like, but, I don't know much about him. I like your corners, your safeties. I see the D-line, our D-line versus your O-line as our biggest opportunity to kind of impact the game. And so that's where I think that we're going to have to see, because like our D line has been getting after it, and they're just collapsing the pocket from everywhere. So I think that's going to be the biggest matchup to watch.
Okay. We'll get more into that. That's good stuff. I like that what you said. But yeah, we'll get more into that as we get into the game preview and everything. So, but no, that's awesome. Okay. So you already mentioned, I guess I did have this written up, but we talked about Sheriff a little bit. Obviously, I think you said you had to pay to play. So I'm assuming you loved the sign.
Oh, I love it.
Signing.
He's our best player on our team. He's the absolute best player on our team. Like, and I'm not kidding. Like, so if he can stay healthy.
Isn't that sad though? It's a guard.
Listen, in the modern NFL, if we're talking 1999, get your left tackle, your blind side, but that your left tackle and your right tackle are just as important nowadays. I mean, your guard, especially with the amount of if we looked at how many inside zone run, every team runs inside zone like every other play. You hand it to your running back out of shotgun, they run between the tackles, they find the gap, and they hit it up where they can. Like, that's become the staple of the NFL offensive run game. And to run inside zone, you have to have guards and centers. So if you don't have a guard and center that you can run behind, your tackles mean nothing. Yeah, in pass protection, you want to tackle, right? But in run block, you want your interior offensive lineman. So the Jags, it's all looking like they hit on this center from Kentucky, this rookie center, Luke Fortner. I think they hit on him. He's looking like massively good. We have some questions at left guard, Brandon Sheriff at right guard, and our tackles are like veterans. Yeah. So our offensive line has never really been lacking in run blocking. We've actually been pretty decent in run blocking. Look at like James Robinson. He's been a guy who's been, talked about in fantasy football and things like that over the last couple of years, because our run blocking has never really been the problem. It's been our pass protection. And the inserting of Luke Fortner, Cam Robinson's finally healthy this year. Andrew Norwell now, and we have blocking tight ends now. We have the ability to bring in Manhurts as a blocking tight end, Evan Ingram as a split out receiving tight end. So I think you're going to see a big upgrade in our protection and pass protection and run blocking. And so I love the signing of Brandon Sheriff. I'm a big trenches guy. I would rather invest all of our money into offensive and defensive line and bring in unrestricted, undrafted free agents at skill positions than the vice versa. Because I think the game is won in the trenches, and I think the Jags and Doug Pederson is notoriously known for investing in the trenches, and I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, when the Eagles won, they had a great offensive line and defensive line, for sure. Awesome. Okay. All right, before we get into this game preview,
Wait
We
a
both
second.
went over.
Wait a second. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
You guys are legit rolling out Andrew Norwell, and you're completely fine with it. Can we just talk about that for 1 second? Because we watched Andrew Norwell for the last 2 years, and trust me, you should not be fine with that. Okay? I'm telling you right now. He is not the Carolina Panthers Andrew Norwell. He's not that guy. I'm trying to tell you right now.
Okay.
I hope you have a contingency plan at left guard in place, because that man will not make you happy as the season goes on. I'm telling you right now.
That is hilarious. Well, I do like Wes Schweitzer, our backup. Okay. He's been our backup for a while, and whenever he comes in, he's not the most talented guy, but he plays with a lot of toughness, a lot of heart, a lot of go get it. He doesn't give up on plays. But to me, it's hard to worry about the offensive line when I have John Matsko. Like it's John Matsko really is. I mean, he's like a offensive line whisperer. Like, because you say he's not the Carolina guy. Well, the guy that coached him in Carolina was John Matsko.
Okay.
Trey Turner was a 5-time Pro Bowler in Carolina, and then he left, and he was a nobody. But why was he a Pro Bowler? I don't know, except for the fact that he was coached by John Matsko. Like, John Matsko, he understands. I don't know why. I've never been in the meeting room with him or anything. I don't know if he just dumbs it down and he makes everybody be able to just play with instincts and be able to not have to think much. I don't know. But he has done if there's one guy that I love on our coaching staff, it's John Matsko. He is our number one coach in my, especially position, number one coach. It's not even close to me. But all right, but you're saying that, and you would know about more than me. I didn't watch a ton of Jags games. All right, and I didn't, after we signed Norwell, my initial thing was I thought he was just a camp body. Like, I didn't think he was actually going to be the starter. Like, I wasn't like, oh, Norwell's definitely going to be our starter. Then it's like, oh, people are saying it. So I never went and watched Norwell film to be able to confirm one way or the other. I guess I have blind bias to my man.
So
John
we
Matsko.
signed him from Carolina after. I mean, he was an All-Pro in Carolina. And so, and we paid him like 30 or 40 million. I mean, we brought him in to be like this legit All-Pro here in Jacksonville. And we had Doug Marrone, offensive line coach, and he was our head coach. So I'm thinking Doug Marrone knows what he's doing. He brought in a guy that he can coach up, and it just didn't work out that way. Yeah. So, listen, I believe you, and you have me a believer in your offensive line coach. So, you know, I love it. You have me believing. I'm just telling you.
Well, he was an All-Pro in Carolina, and then all of a sudden he sucked.
Right.
What did he lose, right? And
I don't
Trey
know.
Turner, he was an All-Pro or Pro Bowler, 5-time Pro Bowler in Carolina. He goes to, I think it was like, he went, I think it was like Los Angeles, San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, it was the Chargers,
And then he went to Pittsburgh, I think, last year, and neither one he was any good. So I'm just assuming we're bringing these guys back. And he's going to figure it out.
Common denominator.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
Little Dr. Doolittle with the animals. Like, he's going to do the whispering out there, and they're just going to figure it out. So
I like you guys. You know, I go back to the Steve Spurrier days. Okay, listen, we have a lot of Gator fans here in Jacksonville. All right, so when Steve Spurrier took that job, no one was rooting for him more than me. I was trying to think of the quarterback you guys had. Was it Danny Werfel? Was Werfel there at some point?
What years?
Golly, that would have been like late 90s, early 2000s. But I can't remember. You had some. It wasn't Grossman for a little bit, was it? Did you have Grossman?
Well, Grossman was mid 2000s.
Okay, so Grossman. That's who I was thinking of.
Okay, Grossman.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Sexy Rexy.
But like mid to late 2000, like 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere.
So all the Gator fans down here in Jacksonville, we were like rooting for Rex Grossman. So when he went
Sexy Rexy.
Yeah, absolutely. When he went, he didn't.
Real RG3.
Listen, he made a playoff run with the.
Well, he's
Bears.
an actual third. I don't know if you remember that. He's Rex Grossman the third.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like Robert Griffin the third. Yeah. So we
Shane
have two
Matthews.
RG3s.
Shane Matthews, another guy that was with you guys. Shane Matthews. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was only 6 then, and I'm in the late 90s. I don't remember. I remember like Mark Brunell. I remember Patrick Ramsey.
Oh, Mark Brunell. Yeah.
The first quarterback I remember playing, like going and seeing playing, I think his name was Tony Banks. He was an African American quarterback.
Didn't he have like?
Yeah.
I
don't remember if he was really good or not. I just remember liking him. I don't know. I was like a 7-year-old. I'm like, yeah, go Tony Banks, let's go. So anyway, like I thought he was interesting. So maybe I don't know. But anyway, cool. That's awesome. We both went over in the preseason.
Yeah.
Our fan bases think it's time to burn. At least ours does. I don't know about you guys, but our fan base it's time to burn the stadium down and start anew with a whole new team, whole new regime. Does this matter to you that you went 0-4?
Not at all. Not even a little bit. Because we went 0-4, but the first game, the Hall of Fame game, none of our starters played. And the last preseason game, none of our starters played. So really, we're looking at 2 preseason games to really evaluate our talent. And in both preseason games, when our starters left the game, we were winning. So, and not only were we winning, we were like dominating. In both preseason 2 and 3, our starters were absolutely demolishing their opponents. Now, to be fair, Vegas and Cleveland weren't playing like everybody. Okay. So like, again, I'm not naive. I know like who was out there and things like that, but there were a lot of starters playing. And, you know, our starters left the game in both of those games, significantly dominating the time of possession, the yards, and everything, the yard differential, all of that. So Jags fans, although going 0-4 in the preseason, we have a lot of optimism because our starters actually dominated the other team's first team that they brought out. So we actually, I mean, that's why you might sense a lot of optimism from the Jaguars fan base, because in the preseason, our starters actually looked really, really good. I mean, almost every single offensive drive ended in points for us, whether it was a field goal or touchdown. I mean, our defense was, like I was saying, collapsing pockets. I mean, did you see Deshaun Watson's stat line? Did you see like
1 for 7?
Yeah, I mean, these teams were like, our team looked really good when the starters were in. And one of the chief issues our fan base has with our team right now is our lack of depth, because as soon as the second and third teams came in, we couldn't even score, couldn't even move the ball. So depth is a thing you have to look at, because there's going to be injuries in the NFL. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that our second and third team came in and did nothing. But at the same time, our first team looked really, really good against the opposing team's first teams.
Fair enough. Honestly, our 0-3 did look different than that. Our offense could move, but we didn't score. Like, we would get a couple of first downs and then stall out, like just fail on a third down. I think they only ended up scoring 1 touchdown, and Carson Wentz didn't throw it. Brian Robinson scored it. But, yeah, and then our starting defense was abysmal. But the one that they played the most, it was against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, with no game planning.
So your preseason games were, I mean, I was looking at them, was freaking, you guys played the Chiefs, the Ravens. I mean, good Lord. Like, that's the way to do it.
And then we played Carolina the first one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's, I don't know. I'm not taking much stake. I don't care about the preseason, because we'll have to get into the regular season, because there's several times that teams go 0-4 and they do well, and there's other times they go 4-0 and they stink, right? Like, you have no idea what the preseason is going to actually bring you as far as the regular season. But good. All right, we're on the same page. It does not matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Let's hop into this scouting the enemy. All right, so we're going to just go through a little bit position by position. Of course, you got your quarterback. You got your young quarterback here.
That's right.
Coming in to year 2.
We tanked for him. We went through a lot to tank for that man, okay?
Yes. Tank for Trevor.
That's right.
Good deal. And you did tank for Mr. Trevor. You got that number 1 pick, fighting with the Jets, right?
We cheered harder. We cheered harder for the Jets that year than we did for the Jags. Like, we were hanging on to every single play. I think that when Greg Williams threw that Raiders Jets game with the all-out blitz on 4th and whatever to end the game, we were pissed, because we were like, the one thing you couldn't do was let the Jets, lose that game, because they lost it on purpose. They fired Greg Williams that same week, and then they went on to win the next 2 games and gave us the pick. So we were happy about it.
Yeah, we'll see. I did like Zach Wilson coming out, though. But okay, sweet. So you got your quarterback. Does he make a year 2 jump, in your opinion? Is this guy, is he ready to take off?
I mean, if you ask me,
that. No, is he going to be a Pro Bowler this season?
I mean, I think obviously if you ask a Jags fan, obviously we're going to say yes. We're going to, I think this, the Ringer came out with their top Stephen Ruiz from the Ringer, who I actually think is a good writer. Like, I listen to the Ringer NFL podcast. I actually like Stephen Ruiz a lot. So I don't normally read stuff like this when it comes out. I don't like when stuff comes out that's like the Ringer or PFF, and I like PFF, but ESPN, NFL Network, just like top quarterbacks, I don't typically care. But when Stephen Ruiz came out with his list, I was like, okay. And he has Trevor Lawrence right now as the current 14th best quarterback in the league, and that was a lot higher than a lot of Jags fans thought he was going to be ranked. And so I mean, I think that he makes the jump. Obviously, having Urban Meyer was a huge setback because they got nothing done as far as development-wise.
Yeah.
You added Christian Kirk. You added Evan Ingram. You added Zay Jones. You added Brandon Sheriff, who I think is huge. Travis Etienne's coming back. I mean, there's 12 new starters this year than from last year, whether from like season-long injury or draft picks or free agents. 12 new players. I mean, that's more than 50% a turnover for your team. So I'm expecting a big jump. Now, obviously, I'm tapering my optimism because anytime you have a new coach and a new scheme, there's going to be some growing pains. But I think you see a huge jump this year in Trevor Lawrence. And, I think by year 3 or 4, I mean, this team's cooking. So, I'm looking for some big improvements this year.
Does Etienne seem as though he is coming back fully healthy, or you think he's going to get tapered in? And should we look for James Robinson more early on, or is he going to come in full-fledged?
So early, you're definitely going to be looking for Travis Etienne. I mean, the way he looked in preseason and in camp, he's 110%.
Oh,
and I mean, they're using him in ways, I mean, as a receiver, as a running back. I mean, there's a reason why he was going in fantasy drafts in the 2nd and 3rd round. I mean, he was just absolute stud this preseason. He's your guy to look for. James Robinson actually is going to have a little bit of a slower comeback. They're going to bring him back slowly. I mean, he had a late season. I think he had Achilles tear. I mean, those injuries are tough to come back from. And so James Robinson, Doug Pederson said he's 100% week 1, but I think they're gonna go running back by committee, and I think they're gonna see Etienne get like the bulk of the share of load. But it's a good problem to have when you have 2 good running backs. You don't want to see him ever injured, but Travis Etienne is going to be the guy who leads the backfield in rushing yards and receiving yards.
So in early, that was the
early and all season. And all season. Etienne.
I'm not expecting him to slow down. It was more like, will he come out of the gates, or will it take a little bit? So okay, cool. All right,
I mean, think about it. James Robinson, for all he is and all the reputation that he has as a good back, was an undrafted free agent. Travis Etienne was drafted in the 1st round. Like, think about who are you going to use? Your 1st round pick running back, so Etienne's got all the talent, all the skill, not to mention there's a rapport there with Lawrence and Etienne from playing in college together. So there's a lot that goes into that. So Etienne's the guy, 100%.
Got it. So you threw out a bunch of money to Christian Kirk.
Yes.
You had Marvin Jones, who he actually had a decent, at least fantasy season last year. And then you got Zay Jones came from Buffalo, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then I don't know any of the
he might have been with
receivers.
He might have been with, I can't remember.
Raiders. He was with Raiders.
Yeah, I think he was with Vegas last year.
He went from Buffalo to the
Buffalo
Raiders.
to Vegas. Yeah.
As soon as you said he was, Raiders jumped in my head. So
right.
There you go. A lot of people would be hating on this wide receiver group. I feel like if you look at wide receiver rankings, do you feel the same, or do you think that this is going to surprise a lot of people? This group.
No,
did you like the Christian Kirk payday?
Love it. Love it. Okay, so I love Christian Kirk payday. At the same time, I think it might be one of our weakest positions. Okay. Now, and I know that's weird, and I won't spend too much time because I don't want to take up all the time on this. But listen, I was just talked about how I wanted Jameson Williams 1st overall. Okay, I still think this team lacks that take the top off number 1 wide receiver. But when you're a team like Jacksonville, who's coming off the season that you did, you're going to have to do what you did to pay for Christian Kirk. You're not going to get a guy like that. You see Allen Robinson go to the Rams, Amari Cooper go to the Browns. Like, you're not getting those guys. You're not. They don't want to come here. So you're going to have to get a guy on the skill level of Christian Kirk, who I think will actually be better in this offense because he's a pro-style receiver. He runs good routes. He creates separation. That's not what Arizona runs. Arizona runs backyard football. Kyler Murray runs around, creates time. That's not what Christian Kirk ever was, ever in a Texas A&M or ever. He's a prototypical wide receiver. He runs good routes. He gets open. He creates separation. He needs a quarterback who can throw the ball on good timing and accuracy. And that's what Trevor Lawrence is. And so I think he's actually going to flourish here in Jacksonville. Zay Jones was the guy I was the harshest on that signing. Even though it was only like a $10 million deal with like the 2nd-year team option, I never even noticed Zay Jones in the NFL. I did, but not as a playmaker. What we've seen in the preseason has been the complete opposite. He's been tearing it up in the preseason. He's been tearing up in camp. And a lot of people are big on Zay Jones now. And I've done a 180 on Zay Jones. So I got to say I have. And I'm expecting big things out of him. Marvin Jones. I loved Marvin Jones coming from Detroit. I thought he was great in that system. he's never really translated here. He's been like that possession guy underneath, but he's turned in from a guy who was a number 1 tweener, number 2 in Detroit to a guy who's like a 3 or 4 now here. And that's just because he's gotten older, and he doesn't have the same speed, but he's reliable with his hands and things like that. Guys that we counted on last year, like Laviska Shenault, Laquan Treadwell, we cut. So, I mean, those are guys.
Did you cut him or trade?
So we traded Laviska, but I mean, it was for like a late pick. So, I mean, whatever.
Okay.
It's,
you're
right. Exactly. So, those guys, we got Jamal Agnew, who's a converted special teams guy who everyone here loves because of his electric playmaking ability, but is not a guy you're going to depend on in your receiving room. They're depending on an undrafted free agent, Tim Jones, who had a pretty good preseason in camp. But I'll be the first to tell you, I think receiving core is the weakest group that we have.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted a guy like Jameson Williams. But you can't build a receiving room on a team that's rebuilding in 1 year. That takes like 2 or 3 years because skill position players don't always want to come to a team that's losing. To be honest.
Fair. All right, tight end group. You bring in Evan Ingram. You traded for Dan Arnold in the middle of last year, right?
Well, Urban Meyer did.
Urban Meyer did.
Yeah.
You don't claim that as you.
Yeah, I like Dan Arnold. So I like Dan Arnold, but it wasn't really like this regime. Like they didn't really
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then I know nothing about Chris Manhertz.
Yeah, he's a blocker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about this tight end room? Okay, Evan Ingram. Does he come out? Does he learn how to catch the football?
So this is one of the things that really makes you scratch your head because when you look at Doug Pederson's record in past, every year except for his last year in Philadelphia when he got fired, Zach Ertz was his leading receiver in yards and attempts and catches. And now we're with a team that doesn't have a tight end. So he brings in Evan Ingram, and we're like, okay, he's looked decent in the preseason. He had a touchdown in the preseason. He only played in 2 games.
Did he have any drops?
He didn't have any drops in preseason games. I think in camp he had a couple drops. Okay. So like the people that were at camp talked about he had a couple drops. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. Super athletic, generational athleticism at that position. But like you said, if you can't catch, it doesn't matter, and he can't block. So it's basically they're keeping 4 tight ends now, and I like Dan Arnold. I like Evan Ingram. Manhertz is a blocker, and
Luke Farrell.
Luke Farrell is basically a pseudo H-back tight end. He's been playing that like kind of fullback role. But listen, in the preseason, we saw multiple formations of 3 tight end sets, and for a team that wouldn't really claim this being like a tight end heavy room, to roll out there with 3 tight ends goes to show you that Pederson has a plan for that tight end room, and we'll see. It's not where you want it to be successful, but it's better than it's been in the past, if that makes any sense.
Gotcha. All right, we beat the offensive line to death because we brought up Brandon Sheriff, I think. So we're going to move on from there.
Right.
And we're going to go on to this defense.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned a lot about this defensive line. So you have the 3-4 defense here, I see, because Trayvon Walker's definitely a defensive end, but they like to list these guys at linebackers, whatever.
Right. It makes no sense. Yeah.
So,
it really doesn't. Yeah.
And then you have Josh Allen. He was a first-round pick as well of quite a few
top
years
10
ago,
pick.
Right?
Top 10
Yeah,
pick.
top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And then I don't know much about your interior. So what is this defensive line? You touched on it earlier that you think this is the strength against Washington that you're really looking towards. But why?
Okay, so basically they brought in a bunch of people on the interior that can stop the run. Okay, they brought in guys, Devon Hamilton. They brought in Fatu Kasi, who I didn't know much about, but he was with the Jets, pretty good. They brought in a bunch of guys on the early downs that can stuff the run. But what we've seen in the preseason and in camp is that they actually want to play that nickel formation way more. So they want to run like 1 D tackle, 3 D ends. And then they have these they drafted Chad Muma, and I know this is linebackers is moving on, but it makes sense because they're not going to run a lot of D linemen. They're going to be in these speed packages more often than not. So early down,
doubled up on linebacker. We can move to linebacker too, because Devin Lloyd first, and then Chad Muma in the third, right?
Right. So Devin Lloyd is a guy that a lot of draft experts and people think was one of the highest value picks in the entire draft. I mean, he was all pro or first team All American. Great linebacker at Utah. And then they came back with Chad Muma, who has looked real impressive in preseason and camp. So they have, and then they signed Foye Alukin from the Falcons, who led the NFL in tackles last year. And like legit. I mean, they paid him a lot of money, but he's a smart guy. Went to Yale, Ivy League guy. So their front seven, like I said, is stacked. So the front seven, I think, is actually the strength of the team. But it better be, because you drafted 3 of your 4 top players from the front seven. So in this year's draft, and not to mention you brought in Lucan.
Yeah, we know all about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like that strategy. That's why I kind of like the.
Well, it hasn't worked out for us apparently.
Well,
because we've
injuries.
Had
you've
4
had
first
injuries.
rounds.
You've had injuries.
Even before the injuries, Chase Young had 1 sack in 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Montez Sweat, I don't even know, like, what he ended up with, 6.
But
7?
Sweat was coming off of a serious injury last year, wasn't he? Didn't he have a serious injury 2 years ago? I thought he was the one. Didn't he get hurt for the season 2 years ago or something like that?
No.
Okay, maybe I'm off there. But didn't Chase Young have like 9 sacks last year?
2 years ago he had 6.5, I think. 7,
okay,
somewhere in there.
Because some people.
Rookie year, it is what it is. And then we were hoping for the year to jump, and in 6 weeks he had 1 sack. And the problem with our defensive line was that they would just run up field, like both of them, Sweat and Chase Young. They would and just let the quarterback spit out whichever side he decided to go, and there was no spin move back in or anything to keep them in the pocket. And it was so frustrating to watch over and over and over again. And then they asked Chase Young after one of the games, and he was basically like, "I'm just doing my job." And it's like, no, you're not doing your job. If the quarterback is getting out of the pocket on your side, consistently, you're clearly not doing your job. You don't just run up 10 yards upfield and say you're doing your job. So it was really fun. So we fired our defensive line coach, Sam Mills, this offseason, like 3 weeks ago. And it was like a week and a half into camp, we decided to fire him. I don't know why we didn't fire him, after week 18 last year.
It seemed right. It just seemed
but now let's do it. So we brought in Ryan Kerrigan as a coach. Now he's an assistant defensive line coach. We have
Everyone loves Ryan Kerrigan. Yeah, Ryan Kerrigan's a legend.
Yep. So we brought him as the assistant defensive line coach. We have this guy Jeff Zuzninia. He apparently played with like Warren Sapp and company. So Warren Sapp has been at training camp, and so hopefully our defensive line can, because we haven't had, and I got this from Louis T, and I started thinking about this. Louis T is one of our bigger YouTubers on the Washington side, but he mentioned this, and I really started thinking about it. We haven't had like a dominant defensive line performance since week 1 of 2020, where we had 8 sacks on Carson Wentz. Outside of that, we have it's been horrible, even though you have 4 first-round picks.
That's what I'm saying.
On that D-line.
Like, what about Jonathan Allen? Like, I'm a huge Jonathan Allen guy. What's up with him?
Allen's a stud. He had 9 sacks last year as an interior.
That's who I was thinking of. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, Jonathan Allen is amazing. Yeah. And then the year before that, he only had 2, but we basically equated him to like the assist man. Like he was eating up double teams over and over and over
Pressures,
again.
all that. Yeah.
And and then that allowed Chase Young to get 6 or 7 sacks. Montez Sweat, I think, had 9 or 2 years ago or something along those lines. Not elite numbers, but at the same time, like, they were getting the numbers. And then last year, he was falling into the sacks. And anyway, so I love Jonathan Allen.
And then Daron Payne's a decent player, right?
Daron Payne, I like Daron Payne a lot. A lot of fans seem to have been now put off by Daron for whatever reason. But Daron Payne, the coaching staff had just put out like a thing because people were like all worried about Daron Payne, and they were like, if you think we're not wanting to re-sign him because they were thinking he was going to be the odd man out, they're like, you're crazy. We want Daron here in this building. So anyway, but yes, well, hopefully this strategy of building up your front seven works, because we tried and apparently it didn't work for us, but it's worked for other people in the past, such as Doug Pederson's former team, the Eagles, with Barnett, with Cox, with Brandon, was it Ingram or whatever? They have had a great front seven back in 2017, I guess, when they won the Super Bowl. Yeah. So there you go. All right, your secondary. Mm-hmm. I remember Andre Cisco from Syracuse last year, and I thought he was an interesting third round pick. Did you guys draft him in the third, or was it second round? Okay,
third round pick. Yeah.
So I thought that would be
Urban Meyer guy.
Yep. Urban Meyer guy. Yeah. We don't take credit for
no, but he's actually pretty good though. He's Urban Meyer actually did do some things correctly. Like ETN is gonna be a good player. Mm-hmm. People like Walker Little, our backup swing tackle. Andre Cisco.
Oh yeah,
they
I
love.
remember walking
Yeah.
from Stanford. He was an interesting because he missed 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
like from injury, and then he sat out for COVID.
Yeah,
but
he's a beast.
6'7".
Oh, he's a beast.
Yeah, he's interesting. So,
but he didn't beat Juwan Taylor out for right tackle. So
that sucks.
Because he's a better left tackle. That's the problem. He's a much better left tackle than right tackle, and they signed Cam Robinson to that extension, so you're not going to start him over Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
And he couldn't beat out Juwan Taylor on the right, so now he's just our best swing tackle, which is great. We're good to have a good backup tackle.
Oh, yeah, backup swing tackle. We have Cornelius Lucas, so.
There you go.
Yeah, swing tackles are definitely important. All right, so in this secondary, who is the one that you're going to line up across Terry McLaurin?
Okay, so we have another guy that Urban Meyer.
Somebody asked that earlier.
That's a good question. Very good question. Very good question. So another guy that that Urban Meyer actually hit on was Georgia corner Tyson Campbell. Got him in the top of the second round. Got off to a slow start at the beginning of the year, but toward the end of the year, emerged as our clear cut best corner. And
Williams, you said?
Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell.
Oh, he's listed as the starter right now. Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Tyson Campbell is our hands down best corner, and he is had such a sharp trajectory toward performance that he went from a guy that we were hoping we were going to be good to he's our clear cut number one, and he follows the best receiver around the field. I mean, he's faster than most teams' receivers. He plays the ball well in the air. Great player out of Georgia. He's going to be following around McLaurin everywhere he goes. We signed Shaq Griffin out of Seattle. He's a boundary corner, though. So he's going to line up with his, right hip to the boundary, and he's going to just play the boundary, and that's it. Then we signed Darius Williams out of LA, who was the counterpart to Jalen Ramsey, but he played so much in the slot as the nickel last year that he's just our clear-cut nickel. So if you're going 1, 2, 3, our corners are very strong when it comes to that. If there's any injuries, though, that's a position where we have a sharp drop-off. Guys like Chris Claybrooks have been bouncing around our roster and practice squad for years. It's a sharp drop off there. If any injuries, we're in trouble. I love Andre Cisco. Most fans think he's going to be very, very good this year. Didn't get any playing time last year, so just didn't get onto the field, which is weird because I always side with the coaches. I think the coaches see him in practice. Coaches know best, but every time this guy's on the field, he makes plays. So it just gets you to think that. I don't know what's happening. At free safety, I have a lot of question marks. We have guys like Rayshawn Jenkins, who came over from the Chargers, who I thought was pathetic last year, but looks good in preseason. You have a guy like Dewey Wingard, who every Jags fans hates, but he actually is not that bad if you actually look at the tape and the PFF scores and things like that. So free safety is going to be the spot I'm a little concerned about, but your nickel, boundary corners, field corners, and your strong safety, I feel really good about. This Jags defense is going to surprise a lot of people this year. Definitely.
So Tyson Campbell's the guy that's going to do his best to shut down Terry.
Yeah. And I know. And outside of Jacksonville, it doesn't get a lot of recognition. But if you talk to any Jaguars fan, they'll tell you within a minute, not even a minute, 10 seconds, that Tyson Campbell's the best corner we have. Yeah.
Interesting.
Urban, a great pick from Urban. I mean, toward the end of the year, great player toward the end of the year. I mean, I think he ended up leading our team in interceptions.
I'm definitely interested in that.
I think he led our team in interceptions last year. He was really good last year. I mean, speed for days. I mean,
Tyson Campbell.
Yeah.
Number 32. All right. It'll be 17 versus 32. That's going to be the interesting.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I think you guys are going to have to get to the quarterback. And I don't know if you guys are stopping at receivers.
Well, I don't know. And I agree with you. And that's the thing. If McLaurin lines up in the slot, I think Darius Williams covers him. That's the thing. So if he's in the slot, I think Darius Williams covers him. And Darius Williams is a great nickel corner. But if he lines up anywhere else, Tyson Campbell's taking him.
Okay. Interesting. I like it. All right. Well, there you go. That is who actually didn't you guys have a kicking competition?
We still do. We still don't have a kicker.
You don't have a kicker?
Oh, we have two. We have two on our 53-man roster.
I see Riley Patterson. You had one. Didn't you have one that was like a freaking mammoth of a human being?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
6'7"?
Yeah. Then he got cut.
What was his name again?
It was.
He got cut.
Yeah.
He got
cut.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So this was Doug Pederson's direct quote. They asked him if he was worried about his kicking competition. And this was the only time Doug Pederson showed any type of kind of snarky remarks the whole time he's been here. They're like, are you worried about your kicking competition? And he said something along the lines of, not really, because I went into the year without a kicker in week 1, and we went on to win the Super Bowl that year. And everyone was like, oh, he's like, so I have some experience in kicking competitions. So he literally was
the year
just
they
like,
won the Super Bowl, they had no kicker.
I guess he was saying they had a kicking competition week 1 between multiple kickers.
Oh.
So
And then because he's the one that found Elliott for them, right?
Honestly, I don't
Jake
know.
Elliott?
Yeah, I mean, I know he's there now, but yeah. So he's not too worried about kickers. Which, how many? I mean, every NFL line in Vegas is 3 points. So how can you not be worried about kickers? But seems to not be.
We know plenty about needing a kicker over in Washington. Okay, yeah. So yeah, kickers are important. All right, and also ask. Oh crap! The coach in freaking L.A. how important kickers are after he decided not to kick any field goals and ended up losing to the Chiefs because he's just going to go for it on 4th down. If he would have kicked field goals, they would have won that game. Crap! Why can't I think of his name? That's gonna bog. Oh, Staley, Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yes.
Kickers should be taken out of the NFL. I don't know why a game that's fought for 60 minutes with the most athletic humans on planet Earth comes down to the most unathletic person that can kick a football. That makes no sense to me. I guess that's parody,
I guess it's parody. Yeah. Equal opportunity. You got to get the small little guy out there.
Yeah.
That
I
is
guess so.
Hilarious. All right. So questions about Washington I have for you. So
sure.
As an outsider.
Right.
How do you view the Washington Commanders as an outsider of this team? Like, what is your overall thoughts on it?
So I think everyone is kind of in agreement that we don't like Dan Snyder, right? Are we all there, right?
Why don't you like Dan? I'm totally kidding. Yeah, I hate Dan. Dan is the worst.
Okay, just making sure.
The worst owner in sports.
Okay, so that's like what
disgusting.
comes to mind first with Washington, to be honest. And I mean, you just look back at the run of coaches that Washington had in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, like legit coaches that just could not get it done under Dan Snyder. And legendary coaches. I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, but like
Schottenheimer, Mike Shanahan.
Jay Gruden.
Gibbs.
Right. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so that kind of points toward the poor ownership. But listen, we're a team that has had poor ownership too. So I'm not going to sit here and judge. I do like the way Washington, you brought up earlier, I like how Washington has tried to build through the trenches. I really do like that. I like the fact that they went on a run of drafting Sweat and Young and Allen. I love that because the game is won and lost in the trenches. And your D-line, when you look back at the 2017 Jaguars team, they had a really good secondary, but that all happened because of who they had on the defensive line. Calais Campbell, Yannick Ngakoue, Dante Fowler, Leak Jackson. I mean, those guys created turnovers because of the collapsing of the pocket they could do. So I like what they've tried to do. I think they've been a little bit unlucky with injuries. But I think Washington actually is poised for a better year than people think. I think they're kind of in a similar boat as Jacksonville. I think they're going to surprise some people this year. I think your schedule's, it starts off easy to start. You get the Jags and the Lions week 1 and 2, and then you get into some harder games as the season goes on. But I like Washington, how they're looking forward. I think there's a lot of parity in the NFL when you're drafting consistently. That's why I hated you guys trading back, man. Like when I was watching I wanted you guys to take one of those guys. I mean, with Olave and Williams or what, and even like the safety from Notre Dame. What's his name? Whatever his name is.
Kyle Hamilton.
Kyle Hamilton. I thought he would have been great in your defense. Those were, you could have had any of those guys. The D tackle from Georgia. It was Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys would have been. I mean, I know you didn't need a D tackle, but those guys would have been.
Oh, we took D tackle 2nd round. Yeah. Yeah. You know, we don't need a D tackle.
Don't take a D tackle.
You know that. We all knew that here in Washington. Even you know that down in Jacksonville. Martin Mayhew doesn't know we don't need a defensive tackle. Apparently, our GM doesn't know that.
Listen,
frustrating.
I don't hate trading back ever in drafts, but I just thought from 11 to 16 there was such a massive talent drop off, and I think you guys ended up with Dotson when you could have had a top tier guy. And so that was
as I said, I liked the trade back. I hated the pick. I would have loved to trade back again.
Yeah. Or take Pickens. Or just take Pickens there, right?
100%. Or I would have traded back one more time, and I would have taken Pickens happily in the second or the 20, like picking the 20s. I would have. I actually wanted to go O-line in the first round. I wanted Penning, the one that went through the setting.
Oh yeah, Trevor Penning.
The Saints rather. Because I just talked up John Matsko so much, and I wanted to kick Sam Cosmi inside. Cosmi, our right tackle, I wanted to kick him into the guard. I thought he could be a tremendous guard. We have Leno on the other side. Bring in whoever you want, Turner, Norwell, I don't care. Bring in anybody on to the left side. Chase Rouillet, a lot of Skins fans think he's actually criminally underrated. I mean,
absolutely he is.
Yeah, he's more than competent.
Wasn't he like the fourth graded center in PFF?
Something like that. Yeah. He's really solid.
Yeah.
And I think he was like a 6th round pick for us as well, so we like that. But I wanted Trevor Penning because I thought if you get a guy like that with all those intangibles with John Matsko, we're talking Hall of Famer. That, and a lot of Washington fans are like, well, we have such a great coach. Give him guys to develop because we know he can develop them. Give somebody else that maybe struggles a little bit. But to your point, it's like you can go because you were saying stay at 11 and go get that guy.
Yeah.
I felt like Trevor Penning could be that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to trade back because I wanted to add picks because we lost our 3rd round pick with the Carson Wentz trade. So I was glad we added a 3rd, glad we added a 4th in that move, and then we ended up turning that 4th into 2 5ths to get Sam Howell and Cole Turner. Anyway, we got back on this tangent because we can definitely both talk. So, no passion over here talking about our teams. There's zero of that. But anyway, okay, cool. So, yeah, you mentioned that you absolutely hate Dan Snyder. Yes,
that's it. That's the only thing.
Join the club for sure.
I think he's a poor owner. Yeah,
that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, it is
putting it mildly right there. It is bad. The worst owner in sports. It's that bad. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're right there.
It's insane.
I feel for y'all, but I mean, our ownership hasn't been much better. So if you have any solstice in that, we haven't been much better. So
one playoff win in the last 25 years in the century. It's bad. All right, so what are the matchups you're most interested in looking at? What are the most important ones here? You kind of mentioned the O-line. You think it's Campbell and McLaurin, but where are we going here? And then, I'll ask this as a dual question too. What is the Jacksonville game plan in your mind to beat the Washington Commanders? How do you guys win this game, and what's the important matchups?
Yeah, so I think, honestly, and I know that Washington fans are looking at their early set schedule and like, all right, we got to pick up 2 here, right? They got to pick up the win in Jacksonville, got to pick up a win against Detroit, and I get that. Mm-hmm. I think if the Jaguars are going to win, they're going to have to completely disrupt Carson Wentz. Now, I'm not big on Carson Wentz. So I think that our D-line is going to have to just create a bunch of pressure and force Wentz to throw it quick and throw it early. I do think you have good receivers. I think you guys are going to take advantage of that short passing game on whether it's quick screens or tunnel screens or quick curls, quick outs. And I think you'll have some success there. I think the Jaguars are going to have to play bend but not break because I think you guys will move the ball on those quick passes and not allow our D-line to get pressure. But I trust our secondary. I trust our linebackers, and hopefully we can hold you guys to field goals, and hopefully we can just answer with touchdowns. And I think that this offense could do that. Your defense, like you said, your linebacking core is a little bit weak. I think that we could, attack you guys in the middle of the field. Our running game is going to be really important, whether it's like Robinson or Etienne or the combo of the two. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're just going to have to move the ball, control the clock. I know that's every team's game plan, but we might have a chance because of, I do agree, your linebacking core a little subpar, just in my opinion. Yeah. And with your injuries that you have on the defensive line is going to allow us to maybe run the ball and allow play actions to open up. And when that happens and your defense is kind of condensed inside expecting the run, we hit him over the top. Yeah. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to come down to time of possession. It's going to come down to who can convert in the red zone. Yeah. And I think it's going to come down to maybe whose kicker can hit the field goals.
And I'm glad to know you don't have one. That's awesome. That's
right. And well, I mean, I view both of our teams as teams that were like, I mean, you guys had a better record than us last year. I view us both as teams that are on the come up, and they're definitely going to be better. And so I think we're both just mid-tier teams. and the battle of mid-tier teams. Whose coach calls a better game plan, who has less penalties, I think will be huge in this game. I mean, because you have two teams that are as equally talented, I think, as we are, penalties are huge. If you have a huge penalty discrepancy, that's not good for you. So there's all the little things in this game, which sucks, but I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Fair enough. Yeah, see, I think you said we're similar, and I don't think we're far off. I'm not sitting here saying like we're way better than you, but the difference that I see in our teams, I feel like we have a bunch of guys ready to go into their prime.
Right.
Terry into year 5, Carson Wentz at 29, Jonathan Allen going into year 6, Duran going into year 5, Montez going into year 3. Like a bunch of our key pieces, Cole Holcomb, our starting linebacker, probably our best one, going into year 4 for him. We have a ton of guys ready to go into their prime, and then we have a weak schedule. I feel like our team's like the wild card of the entire league. Like I literally can see our team going 4-13, but then 13-4. It's a weird team. If everything hits, it's like it's crazy because of like we have a ton of weapons. We have a quarterback that has shown MVP talent before. We have a great offensive line coach. I think our offensive line is going to be great. We have a great defensive line if they can figure it out and be coached up properly. It's an interesting team. Whereas I feel like you guys are like 1 year away in a sense. Like Trevor Lawrence going into year 3, I'd feel a lot comfortable. But
year 2,
your weapons, well, he's going to year 2 now. But I'm saying like in year 3, I feel like that would be a very important jump. And but you know what? To be fair, I said the same thing about the Bengals last year. I thought the Bengals were 1 year removed from being a really good football team, and they ended up in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Now, is that where you guys will end up?
Probably
I
not.
wouldn't put my money on that. But that's just how I feel about the Jacksonville Jaguars, is that in 2023, the division should be yours.
Right.
The Titans will be a competent team because I like Mike Vrabel, but they have Tannehill. Malik Willis, we'll see if they can develop him. But I don't like the Colts this year at all. Do you like the Colts?
No.
No,
and we're the only ones apparently on Earth because everyone loves them, but apparently we're the only ones on Earth. I'm with you on the Michael Pittman thing. I don't think Matt Ryan's any good.
Matt Ryan with no Julio and no Calvin looked pretty mediocre last year. I think he had like 3,500 yards. Nobody's talking about it.
It's not like he didn't have anybody.
Nobody's talking about where it's like Matt Ryan was not the 4,800 yard, 35 touchdown quarterback anymore.
Right.
With no Julio Jones and company. So anyway, I don't like the Colts at all. And then the Texans are just the Texans. We'll see.
I actually think the Texans will be better than people think, to be honest with you. I mean, we're not getting into that, but I think the Texans. I like Lovie Smith.
Yeah, I like their approach to the preseason. We'll see how it goes.
That beard is epic. That Santa Claus beard.
I also liked Davis Mills coming out last year.
Yeah.
I had him as my 5th best quarterback.
He's decent. He was decent last year.
I didn't like Mac Jones, so I had him over Mac Jones. And Mac Jones just went to the perfect situation. Not to get on that tangent. Anyway.
Yeah. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, it literally can be like that. It could be like that really bad. So, and thank you guys all for the comments. I'm the worst at listening to my guest and reading comments.
It's hard.
Like if I read the comments, I have zero clue what you just said.
Right.
Like I'm ADD to the max or whatever it is. Right. Like I have no idea. And I've had other people on in the past, and like I'm reading the chat, and then they finish, and then I ask the question. Well, I ask my next question, which they literally just asked or answered. Like they just talked about it, and I just asked as if they didn't say it. And I'm like, yeah, I just can't. I'm sorry. I love everybody in the chat. I try to read as little or as quickly as I can. Yeah. But anyway,
I get it.
So I'm not trying to ignore you guys. And then some of your questions are good, and it's just not where I'm at in the program here, right? But anyway, thank you guys, everybody who have put your comments in there, and thank you for coming on. We just got a couple more things to go. Of course, we went over the hour because me and you can definitely talk. We figured that out.
I could talk all night. Yeah.
So the last two things. First off, I want the score prediction. All right, Who do you got winning this game, and what's your score?
Okay, so obviously I'm picking the Jags. I'm taking the Jags in a close matchup. I'm going to say 27-24. Doesn't break the 55 mark. I think it's just, I hope, don't take me on the math there. It is more than 55. But I think
It's 51.
But I think,
You're right there.
Okay. So I think we're right there.
Okay.
It's a field goal game. And I think the Jags get out to an early lead. And then I think the Commanders come back and make it a close game, and it ends up being a field goal game.
Fair. For some reason, I've fallen on 23-17 us. But to be honest, I don't really have a great feeling of what the score is going to be. But that's where I've fallen, and I'm just going with it. But it literally, I feel like this game could go 4 ways. Blowout Jags, blowout Commanders, close game Commanders, close game Jags. It literally could go 4 different directions. And it's because our teams are so unknown, right? Like you guys, you talked about how many pieces you just added. Trevor Lawrence in year 2, what's that jump? Us, we have question marks galore. It's really hard to predict this game, but I guess we'll just both go Homer, because why not? Yeah.
Can I just quick ask you something?
You can ask me whatever.
Sam Howell.
This. It's like no. Sam Howell. What about
Sam Howell? He looked good in that final preseason game. Is there a chance that by week 6 or 7, Carson Wentz? Listen, you even mentioned it. Carson Wentz. It's very polarizing. People love to hate Carson Wentz. Is there a chance?
Yeah, because he's ranked 28th on people. Below Geno Smith and below freaking who else? That
it was
I don't know. So many. Marcus Mariota is now way better than Carson. On some planet, I guess, but anyway, the hate, it's between him and Ezekiel Elliott for who gets the most hate. Because if you draft Ezekiel Elliott in your fantasy football, everybody looks like you have 12 heads. He only finished as the 5th running back last year, guys. Right? Anyway, to get on another tangent, but just anyway, yes, Sam Howell.
He was my favorite quarterback coming out of the draft. He was my number 1 favorite quarterback.
I liked Kenny Pickett. I liked Kenny Pickett. I thought he was the most NFL ready, and it made sense to me that he was the first one off the board. And Sam Howell is I love the pick in 5th round. I thought that was a steal and great value with potential there. And he actually had the highest of that, what's that, Wonderlic score coming out, even over Bailey Zapp, who was a pretty smart quarterback coming out.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a kid that's going to pick up the offense at a high rate. Let's just calm down, guys, though. He's not even the backup. Okay. He is the third string quarterback right now, developmental guy, and that's where he stays. Carson Wentz is going to get this whole year.
Okay. If you say so.
That's where I'm at. He's getting this whole year because his contract is nothing after this. So he'll get 1 year to prove himself, and we can let him go scot-free. Of course, we lost a couple picks, which sucks, but no more money. There's zero guaranteed money after this season. So he's going to get this year. Sam Howell's going to wait in the wings. And don't get me wrong. If we are 4-7 or something like that late in the season, 4-8, and we don't have really any chance, and then Carson Wentz goes down, don't throw Heineke out there. I don't want to see Heineke at 4-8. Yeah. Throw Sam Howell and see what we got in Sam Howell.
Yeah.
But if we are sitting at, let's say, 7-5, and we see a Carson Wentz injury, I want Taylor Heineke.
Right, that's fair.
I want Taylor Heineke to. Of course, I'm not talking about if I see a season-ending injury, the season's over. But I'm saying if Carson Wentz rolls an ankle or something, misses 2-3 weeks, I want Heineke to sail the ship for a couple of weeks until Carson Wentz comes back. I don't want to see Sam Howell in that situation. So there's the 2 different scenarios. If we
had to ask, because I like Sam Howell.
Sam Howell has. I mean, he's got a cannon for an arm.
Yeah, I like that.
He's a guy with a little bit of undersized, right? They compared him to Baker Mayfield,
right?
But with more mobility, right? Because he ran a lot in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Baker really has a bunch of mobility. I never viewed. Do you view Baker as a mobile?
I thought he was, but maybe I haven't really watched much of him as far as
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at or at least because he didn't have a ton of rushing stats.
Yeah, that's
in
true.
Oklahoma, right? He was mostly a slinging it
Yeah.
Like he won the Heisman with
he
a ton of
extends the
passing.
play with his legs, I guess, which is confusing because he doesn't really get a lot of rushing yards, but he extends plays. So I don't know.
Yeah, because like
Sam Howell
Powell ran like 800 yards.
Yeah,
or something last year,
you're right. You're right.
Like so and you see it in this preseason game against the Ravens, like you mentioned. I mean, he's making dudes miss in the backfield and running for 3rd and 12 first downs, right? Like he looks like a better running Heineke in some way, right? Where Heineke magic, where he just somehow escapes the pocket with the little body frame that he has, but Hal does it in a different way. So, I like Hal. I love the 5th round pick, and I think there's developmental there. I think he's a smart quarterback. He's got a strong arm. He's got things to work on. He's not a polished product at all, in my opinion, but there's potential there. And if he's the future, fine, but I don't want him to be. I want Carson Wentz to hit.
That's fair. That's fair.
6'5", cannon of an arm. The one thing that you go watch like Kurt Warner's breakdown of him. His footwork is still bad at 29 years old, which is concerning.
Yeah.
For Wentz.
And he can't be the Jaguars in the final week of the season to make the playoffs.
Yeah, somebody asked that. In your opinion, you watched the game.
Yeah, it was horrible.
They
didn't run the ball. They didn't run the ball to Jonathan Taylor, the best player on the team. You decided to throw it 50 times with Carson Wentz.
Did Wentz lose the game last year, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
So he lost the game.
The coaches did. They didn't run the ball to Jonathan Taylor. They had the best player on the field. We all thought going into the game we got to stop Jonathan Taylor. Turns out they just decided not to run that game, and they just would throw it 50 times. And Carson Wentz, like you said, Michael Pittman's a 2. Pierre Garçon, I don't know if he's on the team anymore. I mean, you probably know more about Pierre Garçon than me, dude. I don't know,
Pierre Garçon's not on that team anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Mo Alley Cox,
T.Y.
Hilton, Mo Alley Cox. So
Jack Doyle.
Right, exactly. So not great.
Yeah, no, not at all. But okay, because I looked at what I saw from that game, it seemed like. No, I didn't watch. I don't think I watched the entire thing, but I watched some of it, and it's like. Yeah. The offensive line was just horrible.
Yeah, that's what people say. Our D-line did it's just weird because our D-line didn't show up all year, and then they kind of showed up that game. So
they just went around the left tackles like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like it was that bad. And I don't even know who it was for you guys, but I'm like, dude, you're not even giving him 2 seconds.
No,
it's like
not great.
It's like he's a dummy out there that I'm just trying to get to the quarterback. So anyway, cool. All right, last thing I have for you is what's the season outlook for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and what's your record prediction for them? Where you see them right now this season?
So the Vegas line is 6.5. Vegas is usually pretty close, so I think that numbers is pretty close to there. Like you said, we're a team that's kind of looking up. Our trajectory's up. Mm-hmm. The NFL is a game of like coin flips. Is what I always say. Yeah. Does the call go your way? Does the field goal go in? Does the fumble bounce your way? So if more of the coin flips land in the Jags' favor, I could see them winning 8-9 games max.
Okay.
If they don't, I could see them going 5-6. So I think you're somewhere between there. I hate to put a number on the team because, like I said, it comes down to what happens. Weird things happen in the NFL. If you were put a gun to my head, you have to make a prediction.
That's what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. I would say 8-9. 8-9.
8-9.
Yeah. Because I think this team's better than people think. I think we do have a Bengals type trajectory as far as improvement. Obviously not a Super Bowl contention, but I think people are going to be surprised because, like I said, all the new additions, 12 different starters, Doug Pederson, new coach, not going to take him too long to adjust because he has a winning pedigree. So I think they sneak in 8 games. The division's not that tough. I don't think anyone in the AFC South is really particularly that good. You get to play them all twice. And, you're looking at a favorable matchup at some of these times, and people are going to overlook us this year. And, I'd say 8 wins, gun to my head.
8 wins. Yeah, I think I was in the 7 range for you guys. Not far off.
Right.
Because I do like your team. I really it's all about what does Trevor Lawrence look like?
Yeah,
that's
right.
really what it comes down to.
That's why I wanted them to draft all offense this year. I was like, just draft them all, but they went in different directions. That's okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'd be interesting. All right, man. Well, thank you, Jason, for coming on. Appreciate
Dude, I had
it.
a blast, bro. I had a
Good.
blast. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. Any thing you want to shout out? His link again is the first link in the description if you want to go over there and say what's up to him and like all his videos and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Nothing, man. Just shout out to you guys. Shout out to your channel. I appreciate it. This is probably one of the most fun and informative conversations I've had in a long time. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate. And yeah, you did a great job too. I have no complaints except your Sam Howell had to break. No, just kidding. I just had to. Bring
I had to. I'm a Sam Howell fanboy.
Honestly, I had no problem with that. I was like, I'm trying to think of something that you pissed me off with, and I don't even remember if you did.
I'm a Sam Howell fanboy.
Yes, but no, that's cool. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for hanging out. Hit the subscribe and hit the like button, and he's gonna post it on his channel. So thank you guys for watching over there on Jaguars United. If you want to come over here, I do play-by-play. Every Thursday night, nice. Sunday night, and Monday night game as well. So not only do I do the Commanders game, of course, I do all those. So if you like radio style play-by-play and you want to come hang out and chat and all that good stuff, I'll be on live tomorrow for the season opener. So it should be fun. But anyway, all right. Well, if there's nothing else, we're going to get out of here.
We'll have to do it again sometime, maybe just to shoot the junk sometime.
Yeah, maybe who knows? Maybe off season, talk some draft or something. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want me to come on your channel for whatever reason, or
actually, I might have to. I'm gonna have to do that now.
All right.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. I'm easy going.
Cool.
But awesome. Well, thank you guys, and again, I'll see you next time. And until next time, see ya!